you look at the sales profession, and it's hard work, it's long days, or they can be. I think one reason that I love this job is the harder you work, the more you get, or you can get.
Welcome to the Medical Sales Accelerator Podcast. I'm Zed Williamson.
And I'm Clark Wiederholm.
This podcast exists to put scale to the value you get from those great one-to-one conversations you find at conferences and sales meetings.
From the classroom to the operating room, what does the first year look like when you move from being a teacher to a med device rep?
And that's why we're speaking with our guest today, Phil Gostling, an Endomech sales specialist at Ethicon in England. Phil, thank you so much for joining us today.
Not a problem, thanks. It's so good to be here, actually. And I also feel slightly out of my depth because I know the pedigree and the quality of the salespeople you've had on before. But no, thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Today, I'd like to say that today is the 1-year anniversary of you joining Ethicon and your first dipping of the toe into medical device sales, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So 1 year to this day, I walked into the Leeds office of Johnson & Johnson, or Depew actually it was. And I remember sort of sticking my chest out and thinking I was absolutely fine with it. And then the receptionist asked me to sign my name. I remember this, and I was so nervous I couldn't sign my name. And then she said, "Oh, welcome, Mr." She couldn't actually read my writing, so I tried to pull it off as cool as I could be, but it didn't quite work. But yeah, it's been 1 year, and it's been one hell of a ride. It's been fantastic, and hopefully today I can share some of that experience with you.
So, Phil, there's a lot of folks that have changed professions somewhere in their career, or they were thinking about something else before they got into sales, and specifically, medical sales. Just for some quick background, you were a teacher, correct?
Yeah, so I was a teacher for 22 years. I was a PE sort of sports teacher. I know that sort of differs slightly in the US, but I was a sports teacher, rugby coach, across a number of different sectors. So we have like the private sector, private schools, and also state schools. But I had a fantastic 22 years in teaching. But it also reached a point, I think, where I needed to change. I needed to challenge myself. And possibly looking back on it now, I probably should have made the leap a bit sooner, maybe, because I definitely don't regret it. Hopefully my manager will agree I'm thriving in this profession. But I kind of got myself backed into a corner. And I'm sure there's people out there in the same position. And all I would say to them is definitely take the leap. Do your research, find a career, and I'm sure we'll touch upon this, find a career that sort of aligns to the values that you have. And for me, that was purpose. I think my purpose as a teacher was one to sort of serve, to make an impact, to collaborate and work with students or colleagues or external agencies to try and achieve a goal. And I was struggling for a job where I could jump across and find that. And then somebody mentioned sales, medical sales. And as soon as I sort of spoke to my now boss, who's fantastic, and a really experienced colleague, it just felt like a chat. It just felt right. And that all comes down to that purpose. And if you look at the sort of the role of a good medical rep, and the reps you've had on your podcast have been fantastic in teaching me and sharing some insights. But if you look at a good rep, they have that purpose. It's about impact. And Ethicon, we're true to that word. We have a credo that's drilled into us from an early sort of period point when we start. And that's about purpose to the patient, to the doctors and clinicians, to our colleagues, and then ultimately the stakeholders as well. So, yeah.
So, when you think about, you specifically said rugby, and the purpose of measurement and practice is because you're improving upon where you were today, and you're going to do work to get better tomorrow. Yeah. So I'm curious, when you entered this world, what did you believe about it that you found out real quick was different, that you needed to kind of change your approach on?
Well, I think two things there. I think the first one was sell. It's not that. I think, and I'm open and honest enough to share that probably my first sort of 3 to 6 months, I probably sort of jumped to that point really quickly. And the surgeons, they're always, they're lovely people, and they're articulate, intelligent people with empathy, and they very rarely tell you to bugger off and go away. And they just say, yeah, great idea. Of course, we'll trial something. Of course, you can run a course. But then it's just the wrong way to do it. And I think, again, at Ethicon, like other probably medtech companies, it's about value. It's about getting to know your customers. I know some of your previous guests have spoke about collaboration, about relationships and engagements, and that's so crucial. And I think between me and the cell, there's that wall or that barrier, not necessarily barrier, but I need to find out more about that clinician or that account and spend time to do that. So I think the first sort of misconception I had was it was about sales, and that made me very nervous because as a teacher, I never sold anything really. And then the second one was about patience, and that's really key. And I can hear my manager and my colleagues laughing because I came into it like a bull in a china shop, because that's where I'd had success before as a teacher and as a coach or as a rugby player. It was always about just work hard, get it done, put the hours in, and it will happen. Where actually it was all about patience. It was all about taking your time, getting into the OR, getting into the coffee room and just watching, observing, asking the right questions, waiting for the right answer, and just not rushing that process, I think. So those are probably the key two: patience, and it's not about selling initially, I think.
So what's interesting and what I'm excited about chatting with you today is you had 22 years experience teaching. You come into this world, but that experience that you had coming into this world partly shaped and built you into the type of person that is, I'm really excited to hear about reflecting on this year. So if you could go back and you reflect on the last 365 days, what are some of the takeaways that you have witnessed that just jump out at you?
Yeah, I think the first one is probably life experience. So I think, you look at the sales profession and it's hard work, it's long days, or they can be. I think one reason that I love this job is the harder you work, the more you get, or you can get. Where I think without taking anything away from teaching, you can work incredibly hard, like a lot of state professions in the state sector. So we obviously in the UK have the NHS, amazing people working in the NHS. But I think some of the issues you probably have at the moment in the NHS in the UK is that the harder they work, they don't necessarily get anything from it. Now, I know that you can look at it and it's about purpose, it's about value, it's about the impact, which are incredible, and teaching's the same. But you get to a point, and I've got two kids, and I've got COVID, I've got a mortgage, I want to take my family away and treat them. It gets to a point where I want to get rewarded in some fashion. Now, through teaching, I got rewarded, don't get me wrong, from the giggles you have with the kids and the jokes that they give you. You can have a crappy day and you walk in and within 10 seconds, you're laughing because one of the students will do something stupid and it's fantastic and it gets you going. So don't get me wrong, there is value and there's so much reward there, but I just felt like I wanted a bit more, I think. So in terms of some of the key learnings, life skills are massive. Sales is not just a young person's game. And I think a number of my colleagues now have come, that they're a bit older. I'm 44 and they're sort of around this age. That's not old, but do you know what I mean? It's I feel old. But I think that life experience lends itself to the sales profession. You have a bit more patience, like I spoke about before. You can talk to surgeons. You're not sort of overawed by these godlike figures, I think, where you sometimes see that from some of the younger colleagues. And I think that life experience just lends itself a bit more. So I've tried to bring that, and I would sort of recommend that to anybody. What you've learned before in previous professions, whether that's in sales or whatever, bring that to the fore. That's what I would say. What can you transfer across? So that's probably my first tip. And then second one would be, and possibly the biggest actually, is focus. Or my colleague would say focus. So again, in my first 6 months, I would go sit in a coffee room and I would think I was doing a good job, where I'd probably have 2 or 3 conversations. I'd go and talk to a couple of secretaries and take them a load of cakes and coffees, and then I'd drive home and feels like a good day, and actually when I now look at that, I sort of laugh at that because it was a bit of a waste of time. Don't get me wrong, the chats in the coffee room and the cakes, I'm sure they're really enjoyed by the secretaries, and possibly they remember me and it helps later down the line. But actually for me now, it's all about focus. It's about looking at the end goal. What's the opportunity? Building a strategic plan to get there. It's about looking at the data, and obviously at Ethicon J&J, we were really fortunate to have a load of data about past sales, previous sales, and it's about allowing that data to guide where I go and where I spend most of my time. And that data also allows me and my boss and my colleagues within our team to also reflect. So one would be in my first sort of 4 months, that data suggested I spent a lot of time emailing, where actually now that data suggests I need to spend more time than I do face to face. And I get so much more face to face. I think it's lost, what's lost in translation or what can be ignored through an email, it can't be ignored face to face. And you get so much more, I think, from the surgeon. It's more personable. So that's where the data has guided my behavior. And I think that's really important.
Noticed anything? I don't know if you have or not. So pure curiosity, generationally with other people on your team, where you had mentioned life experience. Are you noticing that some people maybe they think it's what they want, and then it feels too hard for them, and they move on? Or is the idea face to face running into any issues, do you think, generationally, or is it more personality profile? What do you, from someone seeing it fresh, what are you seeing it regarding other people who are starting fresh, but maybe in different generations?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I don't want to sort of stereotype, but I suppose, yeah, challenges. I've got kids, and you come home, and that sort of sets the tone and gives you a bigger perspective on things. I've had a tough day, not necessarily, because then I come home and I've got to deal with the kids, and I've got to do this, that, and the other, and actually sometimes work. Don't tell my wife, but sometimes work actually seems a bit of a rest, and it's quite nice to get in the car and drive to an account and spend a bit of time with adults sometimes. But I think it gives you perspective, and I think we're getting back to that life experience. I also think you learn to deal with the rough and the smooth and the highs and the lows. And within a day, you get that. I'm understanding that now, and within a week and within a month and within a quarter and whatever, these highs and lows. And actually you learn to roll with it, and you don't have massive highs and you don't have really deep lows. You're trying to find somewhere in the middle. And I think that makes you a better rep, dad, husband, friend, whatever. So I'm trying to learn that, and that can transfer across as well. So maybe that's generational. I don't know. Maybe that's a stereotype.
Have you noticed that you're saying things to yourself that you used to say to your students? Lessons.
Yeah, patience is one.
Yeah,
patience is definitely one. Yeah, but I also think one key lesson as well. I guess we're sort of skirting around, but one key is with my students, we knew the end goal was an exam, let's say, and to pass that exam, but you would spend time on the process. And if they were not coming over and joining that little party, that collaboration, at least 50%, then I would usually back away and say, listen, this needs to matter to you as much as it does to me, or else what are we doing here? I can't do all this work. You're the one sitting the exam. You're the one getting the results. But actually, I kind of forgot that when I started this job. I was the one driving it. I thought I was being successful when I said to a surgeon, let's run a course. And like I said before, they were so polite. They were like, yeah, great. And then I'd check in a week later and go, what about this course we're running? They were like, oh, I'm too busy. I'm this, that, and the other. Where now I realize that one of the strongest things you can have is that champion within an account. And when they're saying, Phil, can we run a course? I'm like, yes, we've got this. Or Phil, I've heard about this stapler. I'm like, wow, okay, they're coming to me. And so they're starting to meet me 60, 70%. And I think that's probably something that can transfer. And that's the same with the kids as well. My kids at home. If I'm saying, let's do a homework, let's do the homework, let's do the homework, or let's go to this club, oh, I don't want to. Eventually I'm sort of stopping saying, listen, what are we doing here? Like, do you want to go or not? And if they don't, it's like, well, okay, you don't want to go. I can't be doing all the work here. So I think they're transferable skills.
That's very transferable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in that mindset. I think, also just thinking about what are we here for? Because you said rugby, I'm going to use that as an example. Someone might have interest in playing rugby, and that interest might go away real quick the second they get hit. But if their interest is deeper than that, right? It's the goal of what they're trying to achieve, and it's beyond the idea of just playing. It's more important to them. Then the hits mean something different. And I think in sales, it's the same thing. You might want to play at sales, and then when you get told something that's uncomfortable, you might go, well, this isn't for me. But if you understand that it's the sales isn't actually the goal, it's that what impact are you making? What are what do
Yeah.
I have to push through? What is this barrier I have to get through to achieve this specific outcome?
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with that. It's about the process, isn't it? And I think, I used to say when I used to sort of coach rugby, if we train well, prepare well, then the outcome almost takes care of itself. I know it doesn't, but you know what I mean. And I think it's very similar to us in that I've got one eye on my sales figures and targets, but if I just focus on that, it actually makes me a worse rep because I go in and I'm really pushing it, and the surgeon must know, God, this guy really wants to sell. Well,
Yeah.
actually, if I know it's there and it's directing my behavior as well as the data, as well as my reflections and my strategic planning, that but I'm really focused on the process and what can I do and how can I engage. And I know I said it shouldn't be about service, but I'm still trying to work with that customer and service as long as I get something back. And that's been some good learning as well in terms of I had one surgeon where I was definitely servicing his needs in terms of he would say, do this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And actually, it was a really good discussion with my manager. And I said, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. She was like, whoa, 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 you need to stop and reflect on this. He's almost asking too much here. What are you getting back here? What are you getting back? And then when I stopped and thought, actually, he's almost taking the mickey. He's taking the piss in a way. And when I actually challenged him and sort of said, what about this device? What do you think? Or what's the timeline here? Or what's holding you back? What are the challenges? He didn't respond the way I possibly hoped he would. And then that was a definite sign that I think my attention needed to go elsewhere. That wasn't quite right. The timing wasn't right with him.
Let me tell you something, Phil. You are learning really quickly because it took me a long time to come to some of those realizations. I'm jealous at the you're a year into your sales career, how quickly you're picking up those things and making actionable changes in what you're doing day to day.
Yeah.
You only have so much time to go create the momentum needed to drive the action needed to produce the sales needed, right? And
Yeah.
so if you're spending time in the wrong place with somebody that's got ultimately, whether it's intentional or unintentional, no actual, I use the word intention again, to do business with you, you've blown a lot of your resources.
Yeah. But I think that's also number one, the training that you get with a big company like Ethicon. And that was one of the appealing sort of things about coming to the company. I did sort of explore that and said, what training do I get? I'm nervous about the selling bit. No, it's not about that. Totally, entirely anyway. Let's be honest, it is slightly, but also I think that does come from, this is my first sort of journey into medtech. So I came completely open to learning. I came with no baggage, where again, I've worked with teachers who've come from other schools and they brought that with them. This is the way we used to do it. And I've definitely done that as a teacher. I brought baggage with me and then I haven't been open to learning, where I'm definitely open to when a colleague says, try this, I'm like, let's give it a go. My boss is like, listen, you've got this feedback, you need to flex here, you need to change. I've definitely done that. So that lack of baggage, I think, has really helped me pick things up very quickly and also try things. And one thing that's definitely stuck with me is I was told, this is my business. Treat this as your business. And again, that's really directed my work ethic, but also it sort of made me very strategic in what I do and how I learn and how I experiment, how I give things a go. And that's been really good advice under this massive umbrella of a huge global giants. I get all the benefits of that, as well as operating independently, knowing I've got the security of that. And that's actually really powerful, I think.
What's another kind of reflection point that you've noticed in the last year? What jumps out at you additionally?
I think finding a champion in an account, this comes to focus again. So I think you go into an account and you hear it a lot, engage. It's like engage with what, everyone, and then people do say that. They go into the OR and make sure you speak to everybody. And I remember my dad was a teacher as well. And going back to the teaching analogy is make sure you know the dinner lady, the ground staff, the caretaker, make sure you do know everybody and treat everybody the same. And I've definitely brought that along with me. I say thank you, pleases, hold the door open, I do that sort of stuff. Butter wouldn't melt in my mouth sometimes. Other times it definitely would, but also been really focused on observing, taking my time, and this has taken time to learn, like I said. But then you find that champion in the account who's willing to drive it, like I said before. And then when you find that champion, then you invest time, focus, time and energy in them. So that's my focus really. When I reflect after sort of Q1 of this year, it's who's my champion in the account and what have I done to strengthen that relationship. So I think that's some good advice as well.
What's something you believe to be true before you started, or early on in this last year of your journey, that you've really learned to not be true?
Well, I need to be careful with this, but I think the dynamic in the OR has changed. Where before I think it was a bit of Wild West, the surgeons got what they wanted. So you walk in and you think these surgeons are godlike people, and don't get me wrong, what they do is unbelievable. Today was a perfect example where you had a surgeon doing gastric bypass. He's got 2 trainees either side of him, legs akimbo around him. He's operating, he's teaching, he's feeding back in a positive way. He's also talking to me and managing other staff as well in the OR. And you look at that, you just think, as man management, as focus, quality, like that is mind-blowing, really, the quality there. But then you also, I think a misconception was surgeons got what they wanted. And again, that directed some behavior. So in my first couple of months, it was very much, I'd fall for the trap. I'd walk in with my device. The surgeon would go, yeah, I want to trial it. And then I'd rock up to somebody and go, he wants to trial it tomorrow. And they'd almost laugh at me. And they were like, no. You need to involve procurement. Have you spoken to this lead, theatre sister? What's the cost? What's the value? And there was so much more. And I think that's a massive learning from me. And again, that sort of highlights the fact that I was rushing it. I was falling for the bait in a way. And actually now it's very much like, that's fantastic, but it's not as easy as that. But it's great to know that you love this device. Now, can you do me a favor and send an email to?
Nice.
Or could I prompt you to? Or could I get you in the same room as? Or have you spoken to your colleagues? Can we go and have a chat or some food or a coffee? And slowly, there's that patience word again, slowly discuss it and sort of spread that sort of wealth, enthusiasm, I think. So that's some good learning as well. But I picked that up again. I have to say, the team that I work with in the northeast of England, Yorkshire, champion Yorkshire, they're phenomenal. And we do share, we do reflect. I think that's probably something that I missed when I was teaching, because teaching, like I see in the NHS, it's relentless. And the first thing that goes is time to stop, reflect, come together as a team. When actually one thing we never drop is our team time. Whether it's our days where we meet in the office and we talk, we reflect and we share, or whether it's a Teams meeting once a week or once a fortnight, very rarely will we let those go, because they're really important times. And I like that. I think it's good to share failures as well as successes.
Yep. You can feel like you're on an island many times when you're in a field-based sales position. And it is nice to have the camaraderie around folks that are being challenged in the same way that you are every single day, and that you're not the only one dealing with the challenges, the struggles, the frustrations, all those aspects. That's key. I've always found that key. Question for you. So Phil, you were a teacher and a coach for a long time. And one of the responsibilities, or one of the ways that we help drive growing business in the med device sector, is by teaching how to use novel and new technology in many aspects, or how to do things in a different manner, whether it's workflow or technique. How has that helped you, or has it not helped you at all? I'd love to hear the answer to either one of those.
Yeah, so I'll go for the negative first. That probably reflects on my personality, but I think I misconstrued value as being, for me, education. So again, I would go in and go, what can I do? What courses can we run? How can I help your trainees? How can I help the theatre staff? It was probably a bit full on. Was there a need? Was it a nuisance? And I probably sort of went in a bit too hard with that. And actually, value can look a number of ways, from customer service. There's loads of different ways that value can come across. I think value can be holding back. In the UK, we've just had junior doctor strikes. I felt value as me not pinging emails, calls, turning up in the OR. I gave distance. That was value in my way. Giving them distance just to figure their stuff out because they were under pressure, I think. Education-wise, though, I think it has helped. I'm very comfortable teaching. I love it when I know I've got a course on. It gets me up in the morning. I'm very comfortable doing a clinical in-service where I'm talking through the device. I've had a lot of learning with, we used to get guest top-level rugby players in to help coach our junior rugby players. And it was really strange that actually these top-level rugby players were awful coaches because they couldn't break it down. So it was like, okay, do this, 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 and this. And they get frustrated with these young athletes because they were dropping the ball. And I was like, no, 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 you need to work with him because he can't catch. Never mind, do this, 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 and this. So I've definitely taken that learning to, I don't skip parts. I don't fly over bits. I talk about staple technology. I talk about compression. I talk about how to hold it and why the handle's designed a certain way. I talk about the weight of a device, all this sort of the simple stuff, and then the building blocks which help it work. So I think that really helps. You know, I think coming from an educational background, it's definitely helped me. I did speak about a negative at the start, but I think ultimately it has really helped, from presentation skills to being able to flex on how I am in the OR, finding a time when you can share a joke with the surgeon versus when you are just quiet and you're stepping back into the corner and almost disappearing for a while. I think having that empathy and understanding, social intelligence, that's probably come through teaching, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, being able to read a room, right? I mean, that's not a lot of people have that, and it's big.
Yeah, and you don't always get it right, and you're definitely told when you don't get it right, whether it's not now or they give you that look, don't they, as if to say just back off. Or, and also I would say there's definitely a stereotype of medical device reps going into the OR and building those bridges and developing those relationships and getting through that barrier. I think, you know, here's another rep. Or what are you selling today? That I've had that quite a few times. So what are you flogging today? And again, that's always a challenge to get through that, I think. Yeah.
You know, what I really enjoy about this is what we're witnessing is what happens when someone comes in with a blank slate and with a mindset of being able to absorb what works and what doesn't and try different things and see what works for them. And I think part of what you're experiencing is being a teacher, you're focused on helping other people learn. And so you might be set up to be a little bit more open to learning from other people. I don't know that for sure, but you might be set up that way.
Yeah.
And what it's allowing you to do is you're trying stuff. Because I think, personally, I think us humans, we get too wrapped around the axle in regards to making decisions. And we self-judge decisions so fast and so, you know, over and over and over again, when really you could try something. And what's the worst that's going to happen? You could probably unravel most of the bad in 99 out of 100 times. So just try it and learn from it. And one thing that I have to brag about, because this really got Clark and I fired up, is you started listening. Did you start listening to this podcast before you started with Ethicon or after?
No, before. So I've got my wife, my sister, and my mom was a midwife, and then my wife and my sister are doctors in the NHS. And then when I was sort of looking for a change of career, they sort of suggested medical sales, which I'd never heard of before, never heard of. And then obviously off the back of that, I thought, right, where can I get some insights? Where can I find out what this mystical job is that rewards so well, and you're your own boss, and you know, this, that, and the other, and would hopefully play to my strengths. And I stumbled upon your podcast. And then, like I sort of said right at the start, the caliber of guests that you had, and sort of what you draw out of them, but also what they're willing to share. That's probably the sort of personality of a rep anyway, I think. But what they're willing to share, I just gained so much from that. And then very early on, I met my now boss, and also a very experienced rep within our team who's been promoted, actually shows the caliber of him as well. and it was just a chat. We just ended up talking a bit like you do with your guests, hopefully like this is today. And we just ended up talking. It seemed really easy. It seemed really simple. It seemed fun, enjoyable, challenging. And that came across both from your guests, but also from my initial interactions with my boss and now colleagues. So yeah, it cemented where I wanted to be in the direction I wanted to go. And then the more I delved, the better it seemed, I think. So, and then the beauty of it is I now listen to your podcast all the time. So I'm still picking up stuff. So hopefully that emphasizes the learning and the willingness to grow. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's, some of the most exciting times for me is when we have guests, they say something, I just know it's good. And even if one person is listening and they try it, it's going to be impactful to their lives, to their business, to maybe how they are at home. I'm a fan of people being sponges because there's so much out there for us to learn. None of us will be able to learn it all. I think there are some of us that restrict the level at which we can achieve because we've decided that we are an expert and that there is no more to learn. And I'm a big believer that that's not a case, that we just got to keep absorbing and bringing it in. And I really appreciate you listening to the podcast, taking things from these people who have had short, long, medium careers, implementing it, and really feeling the impact of that and the people that are leading you at Ethicon. It's really fun for me. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking time with us today on the podcast. And if someone wants to reach out to you, is it okay for us to put your LinkedIn in the comments for the
people? Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, happy to do that. Definitely.
Excellent. And listeners, please visit medicalsalesaccelerator.com. And when you do so, you can do a couple things. You can sign up for the resource, which will help you communicate better with your customers. You can also sign up for the emails to find out about upcoming episodes, and you can suggest a guest or topic for future episodes.
If you found value in today's episode, I want you to do a few things for us. One, subscribe to the podcast. It helps more people like Phil find our podcast when they're searching for insights and hopefully make some impact on what they're doing day to day. We don't take it lightly, and we greatly appreciate it when you do it. Next, leave a review, drop us some stars. We love those 5 stars. And then lastly, go to the square with an arrow going out of the top, send it to your mama, your daddy, your friends and your family, your colleagues. We greatly appreciate all of that. Phil, it was awesome having you on. Congrats on everything that you've learned over this last 365 days, and to much success on the next 365 days. Thanks for coming, everybody, and make it a great week.